Someone asked a question about how our vortex generators affect water and how a change in the water affects soil after watching one of our videos. They didn't understand how, when we got there, the weeds were hard to pull. The tap roots just could not be extracted. And a week or so later, after putting a vortex generator on and watering the soil with it, they were actually easy to pull out. Not only were they easy to pull out, the weeds themselves were no longer, as you might say, vibrant and hardy. I guess that's more so. The weeds were not as hardy. The other plants were. The reasons are this. The weeds were hard to pull out because the soil was compacted. The soil was compacted due to actually lower amounts of oxygen available in the soil because of the chemicals that were being added to the soil through the irrigation water. The river water was full of chemicals from the farms nearby, because this was the only biological farmer in the area. The other farms are conventional. They're using fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides, which are chemically based. When they're chemically based, the hydrocarbons that are in the chemicals bind up and occupy any free oxygen. So when those chemicals are taken in as a part of their irrigation water, it binds up, basically meaning making the oxygen that was available unavailable, because especially due to the carbon, and therefore microorganisms and other life processes that require and benefit from oxygen are reduced. It's the same thing today where they're talking about putting masks in front of our faces to inhibit and or restrict. They may say it doesn't matter that much, it's negligible, but negligible or not, breath in, breath out, cumulative, you're going to be getting less oxygen in, and therefore the oxygen availability in the system is going to go down. So vortexing caused the water, first of all, to microcluster. It caused the water to penetrate, and it also caused the water to liberate the oxygen that had been, the oxygen was still there, but it was bound up in these other molecules. When it liberated that oxygen, that also raised the oxygen levels in the soil, which, as it turned out, supported the activity of the microbial populations under the soil, and they started to work again. Therefore, the weeds, which were able to thrive when there were not enough microbial activity there, now they started to not be as hardy. But the plants, the crops, are strawberries and her other fruits and other plants that she had, they began to thrive. They started to actually repair themselves, and their productivity, their nutrient content, all that stuff started to change very, very suddenly and rapidly once the water itself was active again and could get into and through the root walls, whereas before that water had been impaired, in part due to the presence of those chemicals, which essentially were mitigated. The chemicals were still there in the source water, but once they were vortexed, they were something else. They weren't chemicals anymore. They had been broken up into constituent elements, and nature was able to reconfigure them to their more natural associations. And that was all good for everything and everyone.